Alright, in this screencast I'm going to show you a potential grade setup that I devised for implementing with standards-based grading. A couple things to realize before we begin. Basically, this grade book is set up to take in scores that are all of the same value. In other words, if you have a base 10 or 5 or 4 system, you need to be consistent with the grades across the board. And it also assumes that you are organizing your grades by standard as you enter them in. Just take a quick tour through the spreadsheet. You can see it's just a basic Google sheet, but there are 3 tabs at the bottom. So you've got scores, which acts as your grade book. You've got totals, which, as we'll see, will look through your grade book, extract the highest grade per standard, and then use that as the final total. And then you've got standards used, which will, of course, be where you keep track of the standards that you are assessing during the day. The sort of philosophy behind this grade book is that the score the student receives for a particular standard should be their highest one. So it does not average the standard grades together, rather it looks only for the highest value. So let's get started. The first thing you'd want to do is figure out what standards you plan on implementing in your gradebook. So this has just got 2 sections here, standard name and description, and you can call it whatever you want. I call mine CCR1 for Common Core Reading 1, just as a shorthand for myself, and then I would describe it. So cite evidence from text. Okay, so the key here is that I have to be consistent using this as I'm actually assigning grades. So if I go back over into my main gradebook, you'll notice that there's an assignment name and a standard section. Assignment, I might call it history test. And standard, just like I used from the previous standards use section, is reading 1. And then I will go through and give scores. So let's say this standard is assessing how well a students can cite evidence. I would say, let's say John Doe got an 8, Jane Smith got a 9, and Bill Jones got a 7. You'll notice if I go over to the totals section, it's got my standard name here, and then it's got just the scores. Now that's not particularly exciting. However, let's say I have another assignment. Let's call this one history project. If it's the same standard assessing, which you can see I wrote there, and let's say the student grades changes, so let's say John Doe improves to a 9, Jane Smith goes up to a 10, and Bill Jones goes to an 8, you'll notice that the scores now should change. So the totals, you'll notice now, only pick out the highest score for that particular standard. This is nice because then you could easily implement this into STI by taking these high scores and adding them to a single assignment category that you keep on the grade program. If I want to add a new standard, so I just go back to my standards use section, Common Core Reading 2, summarize text. You'll notice that I can add new assignments over here that use the Reading 2 standards. So let's say I have a weekly article where I ask the students to summarize, so that would be Common Core Reading 2. And let's say I put in some scores for that, which I'll just do quickly there. You'll notice that over here I've got a new standard listed at the top of the page with their highest scores. Likewise, if I have another weekly article, but it assesses the same standard, so weekly article number 2, and they improve, so 7, 8, 9, and 10, again you'll notice that the totals section changed to reflect the highest. Then on this page it merely averages each of the standards together, so their overall grade for the class would be an 85 based on the average of 9 and 8. Right now, the nice benefit of this system and the way I might use it is to say that I can only have to keep my grades in this gradebook here. I don't have to update totals. That is done automatically, and standards used just has to be updated as I add new standards. The second part of this standards-based grading gradebook is the student side. So the purpose here is to look at how can I use my central grading book to automatically update student grades? The benefit here is that if you are only keeping track in STI of their highest score for the purpose and convenience of final report cards, you want to be able to still show students their progress. So as students improve on a given standard, it's nice to keep a record of that improvement. So I'm looking here at my main gradebook section on the teacher side. But you can also implement this small additional spreadsheet, which will then show an individual student their scores only. It works very similar to the main teacher gradebook, except the benefit is that as a teacher or student, you never have to update this spreadsheet. It pulls all the information from your master spreadsheet, which means you do not have to sit there and update it for each one of your students. You'll notice that it looks basically the same as the teacher side, except with only one name. So in this particular template, I'm only interested in the student with the S number 1234, which is John Doe. You can see that under the Assignments tab, it keeps track of all of his assignments, just the running total. So you can see it looks exactly the same as the teacher's master gradebook, except of course without the other students. This is so the students can continue to see how well they are growing on any particular standard. This is basically in the chronological order that you've entered in the grades. So we did 2 Reading 1 standards, then we did 2 Reading 2 standards, and you can see all of their scores here. But just like in the teacher gradebook, there's a final grade tab which will show the student their highest score in the particular standard. So you can see here it has the standard name and then it pulls the description, which you could put on your master page. And then it pulls the highest score for that particular standard into this spreadsheet and then shows their current percent. The benefit here is that what you could do is, as long as you use a document sharing program like Doctopus, you could distribute a spreadsheet to your students automatically, and then throughout the year they can see their progress as you add new grades. It basically replaces STI, with the benefit here is that you can customize it to only extract the highest grades. The benefit here is that if that's the way we decide to implement standards-based grading, you're not trying to drop scores out of STI, which in my opinion is a bit too complicated. So you can see that it's very straightforward. The student view can see everything that you can, but only for his or her actual grades. It won't let them see any of the other students. So what I hope you can see is that this is just one way that we might implement a standards-based grading system, and a way to keep record of all of the information while at the same time also working a little bit better within the STI structure. If you have any questions or are interested in learning more, or perhaps would like to assist in the development of this particular project, please contact me at my email address, and I'd be happy to work with you going forward. Thank you for taking the time.